It was a quiet night in late January, well past the holiday season. My name's Dylan Rivera. I had just turned 20 and was working part-time at a family-owned pizza place in a small mountain town called Aspen Hollow, Colorado. I was saving up for community college, so I picked up as many shifts as possible, even the sketchy late-night ones no one else wanted. The snow had been relentless that week. Most people had already retreated into their cabins or left town for the season. I figured things would be slow, especially that Thursday evening. I couldn't have been more wrong. By 6 p.m., the place was packed with tourists and locals grabbing takeout before the next storm rolled in. The kitchen was slammed, phones ringing off the hook. My boss, Greg, threw me a thermal delivery bag around 8:15 and said, "Last one of the night. Go slow, roads are nasty." It was a single pie going out to a cabin about 25 minutes up Route 17. I hadn't been that far up the mountain in the dark before, but I nodded and grabbed the address slip. Cabin 42, Valley Pines Road. Once I turned off the main route, things changed fast. The road narrowed, the snow deepened, and the only light came from my high beams and the occasional flicker of a porch light buried in trees. There were no tire tracks, just untouched snow. The whole ride felt like I was slipping deeper into nowhere. I finally spotted the driveway, barely visible behind a bent mailbox and two glowing plastic reindeer. The path was long and unplowed, lined with crooked pines heavy with snow. I parked as far up as I could without getting stuck, then grabbed the pizza and made my way on foot. That's when the quiet hit me. No wind. No animals. Just the crunch of snow under my boots. The house came into view, a two-story log cabin draped in Christmas lights. Inflatable snowmen littered the lawn, all sagging from neglect. But the inside was pitch black. Not a single light on. I paused. Something felt off. Decorations were still lit, but the windows were black mirrors. Still, I spotted footprints in the snow, fresh ones leading toward the porch. But not to the door. The tracks curved to the right, disappearing around the side of the cabin. I hesitated, my instincts whispering that I should leave. But the part of me that didn't want to disappoint my boss pushed forward. I climbed the porch and knocked. No answer. I waited 30 seconds, shivering as snow fell under the dim porch bulb. I knocked again, louder. Still nothing. I glanced at the receipt. Yep, payment required. Annoyed and frozen, I pounded one last time, hard enough to rattle the door. Nothing. Frustrated, I turned back and carefully made my way to the car. That's when I noticed something terrifying. My engine wouldn't turn over. The lights flickered, but the ignition clicked uselessly. I tried again. Nothing. A rising panic crept into my chest. The snow was falling harder, and I was miles from town, in a dead zone, next to a dark house with strange footprints. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Someone was standing at the edge of the trees. Bundled in winter gear, heavy boots, puffy jacket, snow pants, scarf. I couldn't see their face. I jumped out of the car and waved. "Hey. Did you order the pizza?" I knocked, like, 5 times. The figure didn't speak. They just started walking toward me. Slow. Measured. No urgency at all. My breath caught. That pace, it wasn't casual. It was deliberate. Like they knew something I didn't. Like they knew my car was dead. I backed into the driver's seat and locked the doors, heart racing. My hand trembled as I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. The call barely went through. 911, what's your emergency? The figure was now just a few feet away, staring into the car window. Then, finally, he spoke. Do you need help? His voice was low, rasping, almost theatrical. How the hell did he know I was in trouble? That was it. I told the dispatcher where I was as fast as I could. Meanwhile, the man began pacing around my car, glancing at the doors, the tires, even the snow behind it as if searching for weak points. Then he started reaching into his coat pockets, searching frantically. He looked angry, like he was missing something important. Then he snapped. He slammed his fists against the window once, twice, again trying to break it. I screamed and leaned on the horn, hoping anyone might hear. Then he turned and bolted toward the side of the house. I was shaking. Completely trapped. The trees. The snow. The dead car. The silence. Every second stretched like a nightmare on loop. 2 minutes passed. Then, in the rearview mirror, I saw them flashing red and blue lights bouncing between the trees. And at that same moment, the man reappeared, this time holding something metal in his hand. He spotted the cruiser and without hesitation vanished into the woods. The officer ran up to my car with his flashlight drawn. I flew out the door, sobbing and trying to explain. He checked the cabin empty. Totally unoccupied. Turns out, the owners were away on vacation in Florida. The man had likely found the exterior outlet, plugged in the lights, and made the place look lived in. Meanwhile, while I was on the porch, he had sabotaged my engine, cut something, maybe pulled a plug. The officer showed me a trail of shoe prints around the back of the cabin to where my car had been parked. He was watching the entire time. Whatever he dropped, knife, crowbar, who knows, he'd gone to retrieve it right before the cops arrived. I never saw his face. Never got a name. The police never caught him. But they said if I hadn't locked my doors, if I'd stepped outside again. I think about that every time I pass an empty house in the woods. I quit deliveries the next day. It was early February in Vermont, and the snow hadn't stopped in over a week. I'm Maya Turner, 29, and I live alone with my dog, Clover, in a small cabin on the outskirts of town. I work remotely as a customer support manager, so thankfully, I didn't have to brave the icy roads most days. But the storms were getting worse, snow piling higher each night, winds shrieking through the trees like something alive. That Wednesday had been particularly brutal. My internet had been lagging all day, cutting in and out during back-to-back Zoom meetings. By 6 p.m., the connection dropped completely, and I gave up trying to fix it. The sun had already disappeared behind the thick clouds, casting an eerie gray across the snow. I bundled up and took Clover out for a quick bathroom break. The wind bit at my cheeks, and the trees around my cabin creaked with every gust. That's when I noticed him. There was a man standing at the edge of the road, right where the tree line opened. He wasn't moving, just standing there, shoulders hunched, wearing a long coat and a beanie pulled low over his head. I froze for a moment. Maybe he was just a hiker lost in the storm? But in this weather? At this hour? Before I could overthink it, Clover tugged on the leash, and I ushered us both back inside, brushing snow off her paws and cranking the space heater. I curled up on the couch with a blanket and turned on the news, hoping for updates on the storm, maybe a distraction from the unease curling in my gut. Less than 10 minutes later, Clover stiffened. She was lying by the door, ears perked and eyes fixed on it. Then she growled a low, drawn-out warning sound I'd never heard from her before. I sat up, heart thudding. I hadn't opened the curtains, so I couldn't see outside. Slowly, I stood and walked to the door, careful not to make noise. I didn't flip the porch light on. I just looked down at the floor. Snow. Wet prints. Back and forth. Pacing. There was someone out there. Again. I squinted through a crack in the curtain. A man same size and build as the one by the road was walking around my front patio. His face was obscured by the dark and his hat, but I could see his boots tracking lines into the fresh snow. He paced twice more, then turned and disappeared around the side of the house. I waited. Listened. Nothing. After a minute, I stepped back. Clover relaxed a little, though she didn't leave her post by the door. I sat down again, trying to stay calm. Maybe it was just a local looking for help. Maybe he was lost. But why didn't he knock? Why sneak around the house? The rest of the evening passed quietly. No more signs of movement outside. I even started to believe I'd imagined most of it. Around 10 p.m., I took Clover out one last time. The air was colder, the wind stronger, and snow drifted against my ankles like icy smoke. But no one was outside now. Or so I thought. I locked up and headed upstairs to my bedroom. I changed into a thick sweatshirt and crawled under my quilt, utterly drained. Clover followed, then lay down by the door instead of her usual spot beside the bed. That's when I felt it. The stillness. A silence that wasn't peaceful, just heavy. Pressing. I stared at the ceiling, my eyes adjusting to the darkness. Then, without warning, Clover stood up. Her ears shot forward. Her tail tucked. She was staring at the door. I whispered her name, barely audible, hoping she'd come back to bed. But she didn't budge. I sat up. My heart started racing, the same cold dread returning. I stood, quietly padded to the door, and pressed my ear against it. Nothing. No movement. No sound. Just as I began to reach for the lock, the doorknob turned. It twisted slowly, as if the person on the other side thought I might not notice. My breath caught in my throat. Someone was trying to come in. And I had nearly opened the door for them. I staggered back, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The knob turned again, more forcefully this time. Whoever it was, they weren't testing anymore. They were trying to get inside. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand with shaking hands and called 911, whispering to the dispatcher as I fumbled through the dark. Clover was growling now, teeth bared. I yanked open the closet and grabbed the only heavy object I had, an old iron. The dispatcher told me to stay calm and quiet. Help was on the way. Then, silence. No more rattling. No footsteps in the hall. Just total stillness outside the bedroom door. I didn't dare speak. I didn't dare breathe loud. I stood like that for what felt like forever, Clover tense at my feet, iron in hand, my eyes locked on the doorknob. 10 minutes passed. Then I heard voices downstairs. Police. I ran to the hallway as 2 officers came in through the front. They did a sweep, checked every room. No sign of forced entry except the front door. It was wide open. Lockpick marks on the handle. Snowy footprints all through the house. He didn't steal anything. He wasn't here to rob me. He was looking for me. They never found him. No leads. Just a ghost in the snow. And if Clover hadn't been there that night, I don't think I would have had the chance to tell this story at all. I'm Rachel Langston, 30 years old, and I've lived in northern Minnesota for the past few years. The winters here are unforgiving: deep snow, biting winds, and roads that turn into ice rinks overnight. It was the first week of January, a Thursday night, and I was finishing a late shift at a design firm out in the rural edge of a small town called Red Willow. My office sat alone in an industrial park, mostly surrounded by pine woods and old warehouses. I was the last one out that night. The clock had just hit 11 p.m. when I shut off the lights and locked the front door. Snow was coming down in slow, thick flakes, the ground already coated in over an inch. I brushed off my windshield, started the car to let it heat, and just stood there for a moment, soaking in the eerie silence. Then I started the long, dark drive home through snow-covered back roads. The streets hadn't been plowed yet, and there wasn't another car in sight. My tires slid a few times, and each time my stomach flipped. I kept a careful pace: too fast and I'd spin out, too slow and I'd risk getting stuck. It was a tense balance, and the silence of the woods around me only made the anxiety worse. 20 minutes in, it happened. My car hit a hidden patch of ice and slid sideways into a shallow ditch. I gripped the wheel, trying to correct it, but the tires sank into the snowbank at an awkward angle, pointing me toward the woods. The movement had been slow, gentle, almost, but I knew immediately I wasn't getting out of there on my own. I let out a breath, threw my hat back on, and climbed out into the freezing air. Snow came up nearly to my knees. My car was tilted slightly, its back wheels spinning uselessly. I groaned, buried my face in my hands for a moment, and told myself I'd call roadside assistance. But just as I reached for my phone, headlights crept down the road behind me. A silver pickup truck pulled up slowly and stopped a few feet away. The driver's window rolled down. A man leaned out. "You okay there?" he asked, his voice deep but friendly. "Need a tow?" Yeah, I stammered. "That would be amazing. Thank you." He nodded and smiled. "Give me 5 minutes. I've got the hitch in my garage just down the road. Be right back." Then he drove off. I climbed back into my car, rubbing my frozen hands together. Part of me was relieved. I didn't want to spend the next hour waiting for AAA. But something about the quick exit nagged at me. Why didn't he have the gear with him already? Would he actually come back? 10 minutes passed. The cold seeped in. No sign of the truck. Then came the knock. I jumped as someone knocked hard on my side window. A man stood just outside, bundled in 2 thick jackets, a scarf pulled high over his face. Only his pale eyes and frost-bitten skin were visible. I cracked the window down slightly, assuming he was with the first man. "Thanks, but someone's already helping me," I said. "He should be back any minute." He didn't respond. Just stared at me, eyes unblinking. The air in the car thickened with dread. "I'm good, really," I added. "Thanks though." Still, he didn't leave. Then I heard a click. He tried the door handle. Before I could react, he jammed his arm through the narrow opening in the window and fumbled for the lock. I slapped at his arm and pushed the window switch, but he managed to unlatch it before I could stop him. He yanked the door open and lunged. I screamed and kicked wildly as he dragged me across the front seat. His grip was ice cold and strong. Snow swallowed my feet as he pulled me from the car and started dragging me toward the trees lining the road. I fought harder, elbowing, clawing, anything I could. But I was tiring fast, and he was relentless. Then blinding light. A pair of headlights lit up the snow, and a voice shouted from behind. "Hey! Get away from her!" The man froze. I felt his grip slacken, then he took off sprinting into the woods without another word. I collapsed into the snow, breathless and shaking. A moment later, the first man, the one with the silver truck, was at my side, helping me up, wrapping his coat around me. "You okay?" I just saw him," he said, looking toward the woods. "He came out of nowhere." We hurried back to the road. My legs were numb. My whole body was trembling, and my voice barely worked. But he got me into his truck, turned the heat on full blast, and handed me his phone to call the police. That night blurred into flashes of questions and flashing red-blue lights. He gave a statement. They searched the tree line. Found nothing. The man who tried to take me was never identified. The police think he may have been watching that stretch of road waiting for someone to get stuck. Waiting for someone like me. If that stranger hadn't come back when he did, I don't know what would have happened. I don't like imagining it. And I haven't driven that road at night ever since.